A little lo-fi local for you up top, people. Episode 500 of Lofi Poli Sci is July 8th. Next week. You got ideas? You want to be a voice? Send me your words. Now, to your regularly scheduled programming. Lofi Poli Sci coming at you. Michael Pickering here talking our famous question. What's going on in the world today? And today we're continuing our journey across the planet, looking at development in different countries around the world. So far we've done Panama, Somalia, Tuvalu, Mongolia, El Salvador, Australia. And today we're doing Mexico. As always, we're using data from the World Bank, United Nations, Transparency International, Reporters Without Borders, and Freedom House. And we're looking at the development indicators of GDP, GDP per capita, Gini, HDI, corruption, media freedom, and levels of civil liberties and civil rights in a country, all to give us a better idea of how a country's doing lately. So let's go. Looking at Mexico's GDP from 2000 to 2020 via the World Bank. In 2000, Mexico's GDP was $707.9 billion US dollars. In 2020, it was 1.07 trillion. A 44% increase over 20 years. Mexico ranks number 15 in the world out of about 200 countries. Spain is above it, Indonesia is below it. Looking at Mexico's GDP per capita via the World Bank, in 2000, it was 7.1K per person per year. In 2020, 8.3K per person per year. A red flag, people. That's only about a 15% increase and does not match the increase in economic growth that we see in GDP. Something fishy's going on here with the income once you take the population into account in Mexico. Keep that in mind. Mexico ranks number 89 out of about 200 countries in the world. Turkey above, Serbia below. Now, Gini, looking at income inequality in a country and data from the World Bank. In 2000, Mexico had a 52.6, which is high income inequality. In 2020, a 45.4. So moving in the right direction as far as decrease in income inequality, though still high. And Mexico ranks number 130 out of about 200 countries globally. Ecuador is above, Jamaica is below. Now, HDI, the Human Development Index provided by the United Nations, and looking at GNI per capita with PPP, average years of schooling, and average life expectancy. In 2000, Mexico had a 0.707. In 2019, a 0.779. Life expectancy in the country is about 75.1 years, and average years of schooling is about 8.8 years. This small increase, I think, is misleading and is driven by income almost entirely, which would tell us that in reality, human development in the past 20 years in Mexico hasn't changed that much. In fact, from 2000 to 2019, life expectancy increased only by about 9.5 months over 19 years. And over the same time span, average years of schooling increased 2.2 years. And Mexico ranks and tied for number 74 with Grenada and St. Kitts and Nevis and Ukraine. Above it is Bosnia and Herzegovina, and below it is Antigua and Barbuda. Now, Transparency International, looking at a country's perceived level of corruption in the world. In 2020, Mexico ranked number 124 out of 180 countries ranked, tied with Gabon, Niger, and Papua New Guinea. Above it is Eswatini and Ukraine. Below it is Azerbaijan, Bolivia, Dominican Republic, Kenya, Laos, Paraguay, and Togo. Now, Reporters Without Borders, looking at levels of media freedom in the world by country. In 2021, Mexico ranked number 127 out of 180 countries, with Bolivia above it and South Sudan below it. Now, Freedom House, looking at the levels of civil liberties and civil rights enjoyed by people in a country. Mexico in 2021 scored a 60 out of 100 points, which gives it a partly free rating and ties it with the ranking with Liberia for number 106, with Ukraine, Bhutan, and Madagascar above, and El Salvador, Indonesia, and Benin below. And there we have it, our 7 development indicators, or really 10 since HDI combines 3 indicators. But now, what does all of this really mean? What does it tell us about what's happening in Mexico lately? It firstly tells us that if you only look at GDP, the gross domestic product of the country, Mexico is the 15th richest country in the world, or rather, it has the 15th largest economy in the world. But every other indicator, every single variable we look at other than GDP, tells a very different story about development in Mexico. Crime, cartels, corruption, migration and immigration, large portions of Mexico that really isn't controlled by the Mexican government. These are all incredibly important barriers holding development back for the people of Mexico. These are major issues affecting the quality of life of the average person who lives in a country with the 15th largest economy in the world. And make no mistake, my friends, you cannot be a top 15 GDP country out of about 200 countries and yet rank far lower on all other scales of development without some serious structural problems taking place in the country. And these kind of issues are not necessarily unique to Mexico, not even the idea of top GDP countries having far lower rankings on other indicators. We'll get around to India and China sooner or later, and you will see similar results. But let's start taking a turn of direction with these development episodes. Let's start thinking, how do we create positive change in the world? And if I'd have to pick one specific area of these that we've looked at, to begin with just one, I would choose corruption first. Being the 15th largest economy in the world, and at the same time ranking number 124 in the world, there are some major implications to these two statistics. And I think one of the first ones would be that if you decrease the level of corruption, government would more effectively and efficiently manage the massive economy that is the Mexican economy. And that will directly affect so many of all these other variables we looked at. In fact, it would affect every single one of them. So then the question becomes, well, how do you decrease the level of corruption in the country? And some of you may think that's directly related to the power distribution and influence of drug cartels. And you may very well be right, though I'd say it's not exclusively that. There are other areas of corruption as well that are not cartel related. But it's a major issue, so let's start there. What do you do about the power of the cartels in Mexico? Well, I can tell you what has been done. In 2006, Mexico officially waged its own war on drugs. And if you look at the number of people who have lost their lives since then that are directly attributed to this war on drugs, the numbers are unbelievable. But they're true. And I don't have the heart to give them to you. You'll have to look for yourself. But this brings us to a very similar place and situation that's going on in El Salvador right now. 3 months into a national state of emergency, and over 41,000 people have been arrested on suspicion of being in a gang or collaborating with a gang. Some people might think, should Mexico do something like El Salvador is doing? Could Mexico do something like this? Well, let me tell you, Mexico has a much larger population than El Salvador. El Salvador's population is about 6.5 million people. Mexico's is about 130 million people. If we do a little math, which I know it's summertime and I'll do the math for you, all right? But if we figure out the percentage of the population that El Salvador has arrested in the past 3 months, meaning what percent is the 41,000 of the 6.5 million people of the country? It equals about 0.006% of the population of El Salvador. Seems small, right? Now, if we apply the mass arrest strategy to Mexico that we see in El Salvador, if we take that 0.006% of the 130 million people in Mexico, that would equal 780,000 people. Could you imagine if Mexico went into a state of emergency and within 3 months arrested 780,000 people? No way in hell this would happen. People in countries all over the world would be screaming from the tops of mountains. Although, that's the same percentage by which El Salvador is currently doing so. Hence why we do see a lot of concern about what's happening there. But I want to leave you with this thought. What do you do? How do you deal with so much corruption in a country? And we truly need your ideas, for those of the past have not worked. And you of the future, we need you. Let me hear your voice. Speak to me, people. It's not a cliche or a catchphrase. It's a lifestyle. Always remember that Lofi Poli Sci is more than just me. It's the we that we be. Talk to you tomorrow. Pickering, signing off.